Okay, in this video we'll talk about how to work with logical and character vectors in R. Okay, so if you remember from my previous video, we talked about how we can create vectors, right? And specifically we talk about vectors with numeric data types, vectors with elements of numeric data types, right? So in this particular video we'll be talking about how we can create vectors with logical data types, okay, and also the character data types. Now logical data types, if you can if I just explain you, so logical data types can have three different kinds of value. One is true, false, and any. Okay, so it's basically kind of boolean values, right? It can take. Now to create a logical vector, so this is how we can create it. In normal way we can create it by using C, right? Just give true, false, something like that, right? Without quotes. So it will create a vector called C. And now if I just assign to this guy to a variable X, we'll come to know what I am talking about. Now if you see it over here, the type is logi, if you see the vector type, and X is if you see the logical vector. Now to make it difference, if I just create another vector of numeric type, let's say 1, 2, 3 over here, if you see the type is number over here, right? So Y is basically a vector of numeric type. Okay, now that's the difference. Now there is a better way to create logical vectors. So suppose we will use this guy over here, okay, or let's say we'll modify Y with some better values. Let's say 5, then 10, then 34, then 7, then 20. Let's say I have Y something like this. Okay, now when you create a logical vector from another vector, okay, you need to use some kind of expression. Okay, that expression value will be becoming the element of the vector. That means the expression will be either true or false kind of expression. Okay, so let me show you what I am thinking about. Let's say we will be creating a vector called K, okay, or let's say we will be updating X itself, okay, over here. So X equals to, I can write something like this, X, okay, greater than 10, let's say. Okay, now if you see it over here, the values of X was true and false, and I was doing some kind of comparison operator, right, which does not make any sense over here. That's why it is always give me the false. It created two elements of X, false and false. Okay, now let make it more sophisticated. Let's say X equals to, okay, Y greater than 10, let's say. Okay, now if you see what's going on over here, it loops through all the elements of Y over here, okay, and it determining for each and every element whether the value of Y is greater than 10 or not. If it is 10, it is making it as true. Greater than 10, it is making it as true. Otherwise it is making it as false. Okay, if you see, it created 5 elements. For each and every element it evaluates this particular expression and then created this particular vector. Okay, so this is one way we can create a vector. Even here you can use lot of comparison operator like greater than, less than, greater than equals to, less than equals to, not equals to, something like that. Okay, now let's create another vector. It says Z, okay, equals to Y less than 8. Okay, if you see it over here, so now Z value will be becoming, so first for 5 and 7 it will be true only, for rest of the value it will be false, right? Now over here you can basically, if you see it over here, X and Z both are logical vector here, right? So I can apply logical operator on this to make a new vector. Let's say I'll be creating a new vector called K, okay, and I will take these two logical vectors x and z. Okay, we'll say x ampersand z. Okay, so now if you see it over here, for each and every x and z elements, it is performing basically the logical AND over here, right? So that means for first element of x is false, first element of z is true, that means the AND operator will be false. So similarly for rest of the elements is did the same thing and created this vector k, right? Similarly, if you just wanted to create k of x or z, this is the OR operator, okay? So it will be something like this, it will be performing the OR operator then, okay? And you can also create k with not x, like this is the one not operator of x. That means the value, each and every element of k will be just opposite of x values, okay? The not value of the x, okay? So this is how you can create a logical vectors in R, okay? Now let us move to character vectors in R, okay? So to create a character vector, that means each and every element of a vector will be a string or something characters, right? So the most easiest way we can do it something like this, right? Inside double quotes and C function, I can give something like x1, x1. Okay, let us do one thing, let us clear this console, control L, okay? So we'll say C x1 comma y1, right? So this will create a vector of this x1 y1 as an element, right? Now there is another way, and there are a couple of good functions over here called paste and paste 0. We'll be discussing that one, but before that let me show you one thing over here, okay? So let me remove this variables whatever we have created till now. This is how you remove it. Remove k, remove x, remove y, and remove z. There is another way to remove all as well, I'll show you later, okay? So now let's say x equals to my this character vector, okay? That means each and every element of my vector will be a character one. If you see it over here, the type is here character, okay? Now I'll create another vector y c x2 comma y2, okay? Now if you see it, this you need to make sure that these characters are within double quotes or single quotes over here, okay? And if in your string, if you have any double quotes present, you have to escape it with normal slash characters. We did it in C like languages, right? Similar stuff you can do it over here as well, okay? So but the thing I wanted to show you over here, if you remember from my previous video, when we created a vector, right, like this one, we can use C again to concatenate these two vectors x and y, right? Suppose I want to create another vector z, okay, by using like this x comma y, right? Now if you see it over here, how it concatenated with the first vector, okay, at the tail of the first vector, it just concatenated this guy. So if I just draw something over here, so we had x1, we had y1, right? Now we had x2, we had y2, these two vectors, right? So when we are using this C, okay, to concatenate it, it's concatenating like this. It copies this x2, y2 and put it over here, right? Now suppose I want the concatenation to be side by side, something like x1, okay, then y1 will be here, okay, and with x1 I will be concatenating x2, y2, okay, something like this, okay? In that case, to create this kind of vector, you can use the paste function. Okay, so if I just say paste, okay, x comma y, let's see what is happening. If you see it over here, x1 is joining, x1 basically concatenating with x2, y1 is concatenating with y2, and by default paste gives a space as a separator. Okay, and if I just see the documentation of paste, okay, if you see the separator is a character string, you can give your own separator as well over here. Okay, something like this. If I just use this guy, okay, comma separator as, let's say, dollar. Okay, so it will be, the separator will be pasted over there, something like this. Okay, so this is another way you can manipulate the character vectors to create another new vectors over here. Okay, now let's say I have a vector called C. We already have x, right? Now if I just give paste, okay, x comma 1 colon 10. Now if you remember 1 colon 10, previously in previous video we talked about this guy. 1 colon 10 is basically creating a sequence, right, from 1 to 10, right? And x is a character vector over here, x1 comma y1. Let's see how paste is working over here. If you see it, it's working in a similar fashion, but the thing is that x length is 2, right, over here, and this guy length is 1 to 10, that means 9, right? So in that case the joining is happening something like this one. So x1 is joining with 1, y1 is joining with 2, again it is repeating, x1 is joining with 3, y1 is joining with 4, x1 is 5, y1 is 6, something like that. So that means if you are joining two vectors, okay, which are different size using a paste function, the behavior will be always something like this. Okay, the small vector, this guy over here, will be repeated again and again. Okay, you have to remember that. Now think about it. Here I want to create something like this: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, till, let's say, 12th. This particular string, this particular vector. Okay, so how we gonna do it? So let us see how we can create a vector st in. If you see the pattern over here, till third, this string is different, right? For first it is st, second it is nd, third it is rd, right? Now fourth onwards till 12, it is all th, correct? So let us see how we can create it. For an example, let's say I'll just create that particular, this st nd rd vector first. Okay, then we will join using paste. So if you see, I'll just give st first, okay, nd here, rd here, third. Now th is repeating 9 times, right? So if you remember from my previous video, we talked about replicate function over here, right? What it does, it basically replicate the same thing again and again, right? Either it's repeats the whole element again and again, or it's repeating element by element again and again. For you remember from we talked about times and each input of this replicate, right? So here we'll give th, okay, so, and that will give the 9 times will be 9, right? So let us see how it's working. If you see here, it created st nd rd and the 9 times th, right? Now we already also know 1 to 12, it always give me a sequence or vector of from 1 to 12. Now if I just join these two guys using paste, it should create me that one. So if I just give paste, okay, 1 to 12, and then this guy, correct, over here. If you see, we are almost there, but there is a space here, right? So we can control the space using a separator as well, as I have shown you over here. In this case, my separator will be a blank one, right? So now if you see, we got our desired result over here, right? Now if you see the same thing, there is a special function for paste which always have separator as blank, called paste 0. Okay, so if I just take this guy paste without the separator input and give a 0 here, okay, it will produce the same results over here. Okay, so this is how you can create and manipulate logical and character operators in R. Okay, in the next video we'll be talking about a special data type called missing data type, okay, in R. See you in next video.